You ready for this? All right. TCNJ AT Talks. The statements issued by hosts, co-hosts, guests, and anyone else appearing on the show do not reflect the stance of the College of New Jersey or the NJDOE OSE. Please use your professional judgment when implementing strategies and resources within your practice. Welcome back to TCNJ AT Talks. We are the podcast affiliated with the Assistive Technology Center at TCNJ. We're here to inform, educate, and empower listeners about assistive technology. I'm your host, Brian Kenyon, owner of Kenyon Learning and Consulting.
And I'm Vanessa Lombardo. I'm the project director of the AT Center at TCNJ.
And I'm Madison Bronstein. I'm an SLP and an ATP with the center.
Cool. And today is a special episode. We're going to officially end our first season here with the AT Talks podcast. And we wanted to bring us all back together and have just a little look back on the different episodes and the different guests we had this year.
Yeah, it's been a really cool journey, I think. It's such a privilege to speak with so many different people. We had professionals, advocates, some users of AT, and talking about lots of different topics. And really, the goal of this podcast is to build a community, share knowledge. And I feel like we really did that in season 1, but kind of just really started. And I'm really looking forward to looking back today and then looking forward as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And with today's episode, we're going to do things slightly differently. So instead of having a guest on today's episode, the three of us here are going to do a little recap of the entire season, picking out our highlights, episodes that really resonated with us, that we want to discuss and expand upon, talk about those key takeaways that we've seen across all of our conversations.
Cool. And before we get into our recap, among other things, we have one final mailbag question that is very fitting for our season finale. Madison, do you have that question?
I do have that. Thank you, Brian. So this one comes from a listener named Jenna, and she's in Morris County, New Jersey. And she writes, "Hi, team. I've loved season 1, especially the deep dives into blind and low vision and AAC. My district is really struggling with supporting students with executive functioning challenges and learning disabilities like dyslexia. Are you planning to cover AT for those areas in the future?"
Yeah.
Thank you, Jenna.
That's the perfect question. Yes, we've already started setting up some different guests and things like that for season 2.
Yeah, and I think, in terms of kind of our next season, we really want to think about highlighting our students, thinking about AT for all different types of students. Obviously, you mentioned specifically dyslexia, other reading challenges, executive functioning. So we will do a deeper dive into some of those categories, but we really want to elevate our students to talk about the tools, but how they are using them, right? How are they implementing these tools in schools? And of course, beyond. So we're excited about season 2 for sure.
Definitely. And, not only talking about executive functioning support, we want to continue to expand and have users talk about physical access and switch use as well. Like we said, our season 2 podcast is really focused on users. So we're looking for to have some really cool guests on next season.
Definitely. And we want to hear from you, the listeners. So if there's anything you want us to cover in season 2, if you go to our website, atcenter.tcnj.edu, and go to that podcast tab, you'll find our Speakpipe and our Mailbag, and just fill it out for us and let us know what you want us to talk about.
Awesome. All right, Brian, before we get into the recaps, we want to do something a little different this go round. Madison and I have both been in the hot seat for the rapid fire questions, but you haven't.
That's right. Now it's your turn. All right, Brian, you're on the spot.
Yep, we're putting you on the spot.
Okay. I'll ask the first one. Okay. Brian, coffee or tea?
Tea.
All right.
Interesting. What kind of tea do you like?
I actually make my own. I've bought regular herbal teas and all those kind of things. I actually kind of make my own teas now. I throw some different stuff in there, roots and stuff like that, and make my own teas. Yeah.
Interesting. Very cool.
Excellent. This is the perfect time of year for all of that warm beverages. So
Sure.
that is great. Brian, for a vacation, are you going to the beach or are you going to the mountains?
Oof. So every year we go, my whole family goes down to LBI, Barnegat Light, including my parents and my brother and my sister and all their families. I do love a mountain vacation, but I think I'm going to choose the beach.
All right.
All right. Sweet or savory snacks?
Savory. Give me something salty, and I think I've even said this before when we've talked to our other guests and even you guys. I will eat something sweet like ice cream or chocolate or something like that, but in the end, I love me a bag of chips.
Sounds
Excellent.
good.
Are you a dog person or a cat person?
Dog.
Do you currently have a dog?
Yes, I have a dog. Her name is Pepper. We rescued her. I think she'll be 3 this year. So we rescued her 3 years ago in sometime in May.
What kind of dog is she?
She's like a super mutt. She is part Australian cattle dog and part pit bull, and then a lot of other things. And we actually had gotten back, not us, but someone who also adopted one from her litter had gotten one of those DNA tests done. And in that DNA test, that's basically what it said. It was a bunch of those different types of dogs. So if you see her, the reason her name is Pepper is because she's black. Well, she's white with black spots.
Very cute. Favorite season?
Definitely the fall. I love the when it gets cool, and then it has my favorite holiday, which is actually Halloween. And so
that's also my favorite holiday.
I love it. I think we talked about this a little bit. We start decorating in September for Halloween. And so, but then it leads into even better, or not even better, but a lot of other great holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas and Hanukkah and the New Year's, and then it's January 2nd, and then you're like, when's April going to be here? So
exactly. That's great. When you are on a commute or a long drive somewhere, are you listening to a podcast or music?
I'm listening to a podcast, and one that I just recently really have started to I love listening to. I think it's Monday through Saturday or Sunday through Friday, something like that. It's called Today Explained, and it's by Vox, and they just pick some different news event, something going on. It doesn't have to specifically be current events, just something going on in the world, and they talk about it and they break it down and they bring on experts and all that kind of stuff. So I really like that one.
Sounds great.
Cool. All right. And one more for the fun questions. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
I think everyone has like an existential crisis when they talk about this one. This one is so hard. And you might have just heard Pepper barking there. Let me think. I think the ability to I don't know. I almost have like two. One would be to teleport. So that would be like, because we talk about, and I've said this before, we talk about having a button in your car, and you could press that button and all of a sudden you're where you want to be instead of having to drive the hour and a half or 2 hours or 7 hours.
Sure.
And yeah, I'm going to go with teleport. I think that's it. That's mine. That's mine.
I agree with that 100% as a parent of more than one child. That would be amazing to teleport. Very cool. All right. So we did the fun round. So now let's talk a little AT, an assistive technology focused round. What is your favorite low tech solution?
Anything you can prop something up on. So I love a slant board because it brings the whatever the device, even a piece of paper or anything closer to that student and more accessible. But even any sort of a stand that kind of changes the orientation of the whatever they're trying to do. So whether they're using something high tech like an iPad or a computer, I think being able to prop it up a lot easier makes things a lot different because it changes the viewing angle and where it is for the student.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What's the biggest myth about AT that you'd like to bust?
This one, I think we hear everyone say that it's expensive, that all of it's expensive, and that all of it's very complicated. And it's not. It's yes, some of it can be very intricate. So, I work with a lot of students who are blind and low vision, and when you talk about screen readers and keyboards and all that kind of stuff, you can have some very complicated keyboard shortcuts in order to do some simple things that many people who are sighted, who have vision, use a mouse for. Right? But it's not that complicated. It's you can learn the basics of most assistive technology very easily. So that would be mine, is that it's not that complicated.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually just chatting with a group that I was presenting to in a school the other day, and I was talking about how when people hear the word assistive technology, they think this super complicated, high-tech thing, but it's not always that. Assistive technology can be anything that helps support a student, reach their goals, especially in the education setting. So,
Right. It's almost like it would be better if we could change the name of it, because I think when you say that name, even when I tell people what I do, I'm an assistive technology specialist, I do AT, their eyes kind of like pop out of their head and they're like, what does that even mean? And, and then I usually, I make it more simple. It's like, I teach people how to use computers. I teach people how to access things, and that's really what it is. And then when I explain it like that, it's really more just about access. And that's what you just said, access to your education. And so, yeah, that's all it is. It's how does anyone access anything? And we're just giving alternative ways to access it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, accessible technology instead of assistive technology, for sure. Well, and that kind of leads into potentially, our last kind of question, one word that you describe the future, right? When we're thinking about this field, the future of AT or accessible tech, what do you think?
I think innovation. There's so, and Vanessa, you and I have talked about it. And since you started, Vanessa, I remember having, when I interviewed you way back in episode 2 or 3, we talked about you've been around for a while, to where you've seen so much change. And I've been around for 8 years now in the AT field, and I've seen like leaps and bounds change with this technology. And I think in the past year, things like the meta glasses, which weren't really, I don't think they weren't developed for people who are blind or low vision, or even, I don't know what else. It's more about like your imagination at this point is the limiter, right? What you can do with these things, like those meta glasses. I at first I was kind of like, nah, I don't really want them. I don't want to, like, I'm not really into Facebook. I don't use Meta. But now that I've seen that, and I'm hearing that more and more, people are using them who use AT, I'm like, oh man, I might need to try these out and see what's so special about them, because people are walking around using them, having the world being described to them, getting directions, all that kind of stuff. And it's not just the meta glasses. That's not the only thing, but that's just one thing that's really stuck out in my head.
Yeah, I always like to see the evolution of the application of things. So meaning when something is produced and it's for maybe an intended audience or for a specific purpose, but then people utilize products in ways that work for them. So I think that's always interesting to kind of see that evolution as things go on. But yeah, innovative, I think is right. So
that's a great
awesome.
Cool.
Thanks, Brian, for answering all of our questions.
Thank you for doing that. That was fun. That was a lot of fun. And in season 2, we've actually kind of revamped these. So you're going to hear a whole set of new rapid fire questions going forward. So yeah.
Excited to hear.
Let's get into those recaps. So I think Vanessa, will start with you. You kind of have you're this project director. You got the big picture. What episode stood out to you that you would like to center on? Would you talk about?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's really thinking about episodes that talked about our systems and really some of our processes. I mean, we could go all the way back to that very first episode where we welcomed everybody to the AT Center. We said it then, and again, we're a new project. So really an exciting opportunity to think about how we're providing professional development to the educators that we support, the child study team, the paraprofessionals, the families. As we're moving through the year, we want to have a refocus on school administrators, because when we think about really moving the needle in terms of inclusive education in New Jersey, one of the most important things is to get buy-in from everybody, and that absolutely includes the administrators, the building administrator, the district administrator, the special ed director, and kind of bringing everybody together. So when we're talking about setting the stage for what the AT Center does, we really want to focus on that professional development. We really want to continue the coaching model that we've been doing and kind of having that follow along and individual conversations and working with specific people in the district, and really just looking at it as a way to open up doors and kind of starting this conversation, but keeping it going throughout the entire school year.
Have you been coaching with any districts? I know you can't talk about the districts you probably have been coaching with, but has that been going on?
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of requests for that. I know Madison in particular has done a little bit of AAC coaching. So
Cool.
Madison, if you want to share just a little bit about some of the work you've been doing.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I'll, meet with the district and just try to see how I can help meet their specific needs. Whether that looks like at first coming in and just observing the classroom, observing their use of assistive technology, in particular AAC, and then coming back with that district, maybe having a little Q&A session, and talking through some of that. And, in that initial observation phase, sometimes I do towards the end of it jump in and start to kind of offer some guidance, where I see maybe, someone is struggling with a piece of technology, or, we could help support that student in a better way, with a little bit of coaching initially in that observation session. So it really is an ongoing process, and building relationships with those schools and the districts is really important. And as Vanessa was saying, we offer a wide variety of a menu of professional development options, and they're all free. So that's the best part about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was one episode for sure that stands out, kind of the beginning. Another episode was when we talked about the SETT Framework, which is just one of my favorite topics of conversation, because what it really tries to hone in on is not to start with the tool, that we want to consider various different things. So just a quick recap: that S is for the student, right? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What do they like? What are they striving toward? We're thinking about the environment. That's the E in SET. And then there's two T's. The first T is the tasks. What are we trying to get the students to be able to do? What are they going to use the technology for? Like, what's the ultimate goal, right? The goal is not the tech. The goal is to get a task done.
Mm-hmm.
And then that last T is the tool. So really thinking about the most effective way to get at that assistive technology conversation and that consideration piece. And the SETT framework is a great way to lead school districts and lead teams through that process. So I was really glad that we dedicated an episode to that, because it's one of my favorite topics to talk about.
Yeah. I think it's you and I talked about, that was an episode that you and I were just on, and I remember just thinking more and more, and it's you don't think about how you do things until it's out in the open, and you really have to think about the student first. That's the most important. And I think sometimes I think we talked about this, but they're like, "What's the best tool?" And you're like, "Well, I don't know what the best tool is. I need to meet with the student first before I can figure out what the best tool is." And so
and thinking
Absolutely.
about documenting that as well. Say the student has a new team that comes in. If you're just thinking about the tool, how are you going to start that process again if you need to reevaluate the student's needs, or the student's needs change? So just thinking about that.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And then my last one that I really, of course, I really liked all of them, but in terms of the conversation with Paul Day, so Paul and I had worked together for several years, and what I really loved about that, Paul talking about his journey through all the different jobs that he's had. I think the most important thing that he talked about, especially in terms of transition, is that self-advocacy piece, which again people talk about all the time, but his phrase of becoming your own CEO, right?
Yeah.
The really thinking about you as the person at the center and being able to manage your accommodations, thinking about what works for you, having that insight, trying things out. And then that is going to open up other opportunities. And he talked about that, journey that he had with kind of starting in a field and kind of moving into assistive technology. And now, being the lead accessibility analyst at Visa and beyond, right? What's, next for him. So it was really a great episode, I think, to talk about the why of the center. Why do we do this professional development? Why do we want to meet people where they are and have this ongoing support? Is because we want to support students, obviously through K-12, that's our focus, but we know that all students become adults and we want them to have the highest quality of life possible. So I really enjoyed our conversation with Paul, for sure.
Yeah, I wanted two things I really love from that. I want to see their internal tools, those that he talked about we can't see, those internal accessibility tool website
right.
or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think he needs, once he starts his YouTube channel that he was joking around about, he needs to make some merch and have become your own CEO on some of that merch, because that is such a great, that's a great saying. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Love that.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. That was great. Thanks. I like those 3 episodes, and there was a perfect summary there. Madison, you want to kind of highlight some episodes you thought you liked?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I, of course, AAC being my specialty and interest, I loved chatting about Molly's episode. So Molly is an SLP, and she works with a population complex communication needs. I actually used to work with Molly. That's how we met. So it was really interesting hearing her perspective, working with her specific population of students. So she worked with those transition age students, and really highlighting that it's not just about independence, but for some students that looks different, and that could be interdependence. So talking a lot about what that means and how students can not only self-advocate but work with a team or others to have that self-advocacy piece and really connect with their community. So just what that looks like for different students. So I thought that was a really great conversation with Molly.
Right. And I remember a takeaway that I took away from that was she talked about a student she only got to work with, I think, for a year right at the end, and how they never really got to talk about, they were talking about transition and all those things, but like the personal life and how things like fashion and all that kind of stuff also build into it. And so in New York City, I mean, there's a few capitals of fashion in the world. New York City is definitely one of them. So I just thought it was such an interesting conversation that, we kind of might not on purpose, but we're so worried about getting our kids, our students to the next level, to the next step, that there was a lot more that we can be kind of talking about, navigating with them.
Yeah, that's one of her interest areas. She's a fashion forward person, and I think that kind of spills over into her work with her students as well. And I know she specifically was talking about the power of choice making, having the opportunity to make choices, and dressing or fashion or is an opportunity for those students to make a choice and to connect with their families.
Yeah. Yeah. Because right, that right. I'm like remembering. It's funny now. It's jogging my memory. Some of the students that she works with might not be able to eat dinner with their families. They might not be able to do certain things, but they can bond on fashion and what socks they're going to wear and what dresses or jackets or shirts or whatever. And so, yeah, so you just have to change your focus. It's, and I think that's what the other thing is, helping her kids' parents also change their focus. Like I remember saying that, I thought I was going to eat dinner with my kids and now I can't, but now we can do and be a part of other things.
For sure. So that episode was great. Another episode that really stood out to me was episode 2 about AT consideration. So this was, a standout episode because, as Vanessa was talking about with the SETT framework, this is really a foundation that we want to build. We're talking about this consideration process and thinking about how that AT is not just for one specific type of student, that AT can be for a variety of students with disabilities. And just, I think talking about those frameworks really helps build a roadmap for where we're going. And Vanessa, in our, work with school districts, too often we were saying people jump to the tool. Okay, what's the newest tool? What's the newest tool? But how we need to kind of pull back and build that foundation. So I really think that's an essential thing to drive home across, all of assistive technology.
Yeah. And I mean, Brian, we talked about the myths around AT, in our rapid fire with all of our guests. But I think there are so many different types of myths, especially around this assistive technology consideration piece of what it is, what it isn't. And so we really want to be thinking of it as a process. So that's really why we wanted to dedicate a whole episode.
Not just a checkbox.
Right, exactly. That it really, there's a process and it invites conversation. And we had mentioned this in the episode, but of course, we always like to highlight the work of QUIET, the quality indicators for assistive technology, just because there's so much work that's already been done around this topic. And there's so many tools. All the matrices are there on their website. Districts can use them as kind of a self-assessment sort of tool. So yeah, definitely an episode that was a lot of fun to do and something that I think information that's really valuable to districts.
Right. And I think it goes back to when you asked me what I thought the future to AT, and it's and it goes back to the AT is for all. It's our imagination is the limits with what we can use, and anything can be assistive technology. It doesn't have to be specifically designed by a company that does AT, right? It can be anything can be assistive technology. Like I was talking about the Meta glasses. It could be a special type of mouse. Just because it's not designed by, company XYZ doesn't mean that it can't be a mouse that's used for someone who needs it, right? So.
Exactly.
Awesome. Yeah, and another episode that really stood out to me was episode 3, where we spoke with the ATAC team at Disability Rights New Jersey. We talked all about our, at that time, upcoming event, the AT Summit, and just telling our listeners what the event was about and what they could expect at the event, and just sharing our excitement for that upcoming partnership with them. And I also wanted to highlight Jessie Lax, who is on the Disability Rights ATAC team. Something else that stood out is she talked a lot about, as being a person with a disability, how important that self-advocacy piece was for herself, especially because she grows older, and she, as an example, and her team might change, but she's always going to be the person that's there at the end of the day with that information and that ability to self-advocate for herself. So I thought that was really powerful.
If we could give superlatives for this this season, that one would have been one of the most powerful superlatives. I remember listening to that after we recorded that episode and just thinking how amazing that her whole talking about, like, oh, you did that, great for you, and it's like no, you don't say that to someone who normally be able to do that. And I agreed fully. And it was just so awesome to listen to that and how that ableism, right? It was, very powerful. This is bringing me back to what a good good conversation we had with them.
Yeah, it's really wonderful to be able to partner with them. And obviously we did the AT Summit. We're looking to partner with them on a few other things in the future too. And really thinking about how much we could accomplish with the two centers and and thinking about this continuum as we've been talking about, students in education through adulthood and beyond, using technology for all different types of things. And just to loop back to Molly for a minute, like the leisure aspect of things and looking at students in a very holistic way, right? And obviously we talked about SETT and that the T is for the tasks, and clearly that's very important, and obviously in work as well, but looking at the person in a well-rounded way, just as we would want someone to look at us, right? And just making sure that we're keeping all these different aspects at the forefront. So it was a great event, and we look forward to the future.
So that was one big takeaway I also wanted to add into. So I'm gonna say this was also kind of one of my recaps, part of the segue, is that the community of practice and how you just said it, you're gonna connect. So how's the community of practice been going, Vanessa and Madison?
That's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up, Brian. I don't know how I totally forgot about that to mention in that episode. Vanessa, did you want to share some thoughts on that?
Yeah. So we're going to meet virtually monthly. It's a really great opportunity to bring people together and be able to share. I think when we're talking about best practices, so many people are doing things in different ways. So for example, that AT consideration piece, some districts really have a solid process and they have a set framework that they're working off of, whether they're taking quiet, they're adapting it, doing different things. But they really are incorporating all these different things. And other districts, maybe they're not there yet for a variety of reasons. So it's been really nice to be able to listen to other people and then be able to think about how is this applicable to me and how can we make our district a little bit better. So it's been great.
Cool. All right. And so thank you for doing that. My highlights, I wanted to show the power of new innovations and kind of the collaboration. So the first one, which I do love a lot of what Apple has done. So it's the Apple event recap, episode 5. And we talked about how their mainstream technology, accessibility is just built in and it's not an afterthought anymore. And that's so important, especially with our technology, because I actually feel like Google, unfortunately, with their devices are trying to catch up at this point, and Apple is really far ahead. And when I go and do evaluations and talk to people, a lot of times I'm recommending an iPad or an iPhone or even a Mac just because everything is built into them. Windows is starting to have all of that built in. Google is starting to have all that built in, but Apple has really refined it. I will say though, one of my gripes is the accessibility reader. So I don't know if anyone else here has tried it. I've tried it a bunch of times and I can't get it to work. Maybe there's something wrong I'm doing. I'm not sure what it is. I was really excited about it because it kind of gave me a choice, or would give a choice instead of having to ask for paid for apps. This app would be a way of, and I'll explain accessibility reader real quick. It was supposed to be an app, or supposed to be an add-on where you could basically send web pages, send PDF documents to it, and then it would read it for you. You could change the text size, the background color, the text font and weight and text color and all that kind of stuff. And I just have not been able to get it to work the way I want it to. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it pulls text out. Like in an email, I tried it one day and I just wanted to see if it would work. And I tried sending the email to it and the email wouldn't even appear in there. So I'm not totally sure what I was doing wrong. And I looked it up to say, is email supposed to be a part of this? And it said yes. So I don't know. But I do love that they are still trying so hard. So hopefully in some future updates, they'll fix that accessibility reader and keep going with all this, what they add and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I wonder, we've talked about this before, not necessarily with Apple in particular, but like developers who develop apps. And when you send through to them and say, when you contact them and you say, this isn't working, this has a bug, I'm not quite sure, they seem to be pretty responsive.
Yes.
Apple does have an accessibility help desk. All the major platforms do. So I do wonder, there are definitely companies who are responsive to customers and really thinking about how do we make our products better. So I do wonder, like you just said, in the future or with different updates, what that might look like. And of course, they're always innovating and coming up with additional features and making things more robust. But that has been my experience, generally speaking. When you do let someone know this accessibility feature or this particular feature is not working, generally there is some response and some positive movement. So
True.
you never know.
Yeah.
True.
Actually, I was at the Closing the Gap conference a few weeks ago, and they have like an Apple accessibility suite there, which is really cool because they guide you through all the new features, and they give you like a little passport book. You can like check off the different things, and they actually had Braille on them, which was really cool.
That's awesome.
But I actually spoke about a specific feature to one of the representatives, and he said, "Hey, that's actually not the first time we've heard that feedback. Thank you." And like the more people that provide feedback or ideas for how something can be improved, I think that's really what needs to happen to inform the developers. Like, hey, this subset of people find this feature a little more difficult, like, or it's not working for this specific thing. So that feedback is so important.
Yes. And, well, we're going to go back to the episode with Paul Day when he said, if you don't talk about it, if you don't tell them, if no one knows, right? He used the example of, I have $1 in my hand. If no one asks me for that $1, I'm not going to give you the $1. It's very true. So and they do have a very good accessibility desk that I've actually worked with individuals where we've called and we've talked through some things and they've been helpful and been able to figure things out for us. So yes, and yeah, maybe I'll have to give them an email or a call and see if I can learn a little more about that. And then the other episode I want to talk about was episode 6 with Anna Tellis and Brianna Hairston, and they were the TVI. Anna's a TVI, Brianna's an O&M, and they both work. I actually work with them with a student, but the biggest thing, and we talk about this a lot, is how we work. We need to work as a team together. And I remember even the episode with Melissa, we talked about it, and we talked about it with the episode with Molly, that how important it is that we're all working together and we're not trying to do something different or change anything that another service provider is doing without really kind of figuring out, is it working together, right? So they talked about how the roles complement each other and how one works with the other. One might have some sort of something going on in the classroom and be able to help the other one in the classroom, and one might need help with navigating a street or something like that, and they can help each other. And so it's just that whole team idea, and how I hope more, and I think a lot of teams in school districts, the SLPs, the OTs, the PTs, they work so hand in hand with each other that we need to see that more and make sure that we're working together.
One thing about this particular episode that I really felt came through, and Melissa did talk about it and Paul talked about it too, but they really talked a lot about independence for their students, that they have very high expectations. And I really felt that come through with them, talking about what the students can do. And obviously they're working on all the areas that they need some improvement. But I really felt that when they're working with their students, they have high expectations and they really want the students to achieve the goals that not only that they have for the students, but the students have for themselves. So I really appreciated that when they were talking in the episodes. And like I said, some of the other guests touched on that as well. But for our students, we really want to capitalize on that independence and using technology for independence and really raising our expectations, I think, because our students can achieve those lofty goals, especially if we give them the supports and, we really push them. They can do it.
Yeah, not putting those barriers unnecessarily on students. So
good. All right. So we've looked back at the big themes, but now it's time to see how you two were actually paying attention.
Yeah.
I have a game right now. It's called The Great Season 1 Rewind. Are you guys ready for this?
I will do my best, but my memory is not great. As I have mentioned, I am a mom of 3 kids, so the storage is a little full, but I will do my best.
All right, let's do it.
Maybe one day they'll make add-on storage for our brains.
One can only hope. One can only hope.
That'll be $4.99 a month.
Yes, it will be. Yes, it will be
That's right.
another subscription, unfortunately.
That's right.
All right, the rules are simple. I'm going to read a quote, a fact, a specific favorite thing mentioned by one of our guests this season. You just have to buzz in, shout your name, whatever. Tell me who said it or which episode it's from. All right, here we go. Question 1. We talk a lot about a lot of serious high-tech devices on the show, but one guest told us about a prank week where they used a switch-connected fart machine. Who was it? Yes.
That was my buzzer. That was Melissa's episode. And I know that because I worked with Melissa at the same place of work. So I know that they do that there. And, just expanding upon what can we do with assistive technology? Like, of course, our focus is supporting the educational curriculum and the students' access to the educational curriculum. Is a switch-connected fart machine part of the educational curriculum? I guess one
You could make an argument. You could make an argument for that.
But having fun. Like, at the end of the day, these are kids. So
Right.
they're students, but they're also kids. So
Right. Yeah, we need to talk. AT doesn't need to be serious and only for completing projects, right? It can be for leisure and fun too. So it needs to be. Yeah. Cool. Question 2. In our rapid fire round, this guest revealed their favorite movie was something called New York Ninja.
I could take that one.
Let's hear it.
That was Mike Murata when he was talking about the podcast for the terrible movies. And I have to say, I was very intrigued. So perhaps we might, maybe we'll have a viewing of the New York Ninja at the AT Center. We'll see.
Well, that one was the one where they completely lost the audio, so it was completely dubbed, or they made it up on their own, or something
or they
like that.
switched out the visual. I forget exactly the details, but that was hilarious. So yeah,
cool. Oh, this one's gonna be should be easy. Question 3: the guest gave some powerful advice for transitioning to the workforce. This one told students to become your own CEO when managing their accommodations. Let's hear it.
We kind of just talked about this before, but this was our most recent episode with Paul Day.
Yes.
So this was a great episode. And as we chatted about before, he was talking about becoming your own CEO and just thinking about when transitioning to that workplace and having to advocate for yourself to have your needs met. So
cool. This one might be tough because I was the only one on this episode, but it's a little bit of a deep cut. In this episode, we learned about an app that helps students with orientational mobility called the Musical Cane Game. Who recommended that?
It had to have been. I'm making an assumption since
Yes.
it says Kane that it was the episode with Brianna and Anna because she's an O&M specialist.
Yes, good. Question 5. In the rapid fire round, when asked for their favorite book, TV show, or movie, this guest answered too much. I'll give you a hint.
Neither, Brian.
I'll give you a hint. It might have been one of your guests, Madison.
One of my guests. Well, I'm gonna take a guess, a shot in the dark here, because we already talked about Melissa. Was it Molly?
Yes, it was.
And
so I think it was actually. It's not a book. I think it's a TV show on Netflix.
Okay.
Something like that.
All right.
I've not watched a lot of Netflix, but cool.
Yeah, I hardly have the time to watch shows on TV, but
I feel you. That's right. That was Molly Ziegler. Now, I'm not sure if we need the tiebreaker or not, but I'm just going to give it anyway. In our rapid fire rounds in this season, almost every single guest from Anna and Brianna to Mike and Melissa chose flying as a desired superpower, but one guest bucked the trend and chose invisibility. Who was it?
Oh man.
DRNJ. I'll give you that.
Oh.
Oh, then it had to be Jesse.
Yes.
Because Mike talked about flying.
Yes.
Oh,
Did talk
gotcha.
about flying.
Yes.
All right.
I remember that
Man.
one. That was, yes. Cool. That was Jessica Lex.
Mhm.
And the winner is, I'm not totally sure because I wasn't keeping track.
We're all winners.
That's right.
Oh, you get a medal and you get a medal.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you.
You're
Oh
welcome.
my gosh. That is
Cool.
so great.
Good.
Awesome. Well, I mean, really just thinking back to all the things that we've talked about through this episode, I mean, definitely some significant takeaways, I think, and I hope our listeners, of course, value this. Like, one thing that was really a thread through all of them is talking about collaboration, that whether you're working as a TVI, a general ed teacher, a special ed teacher, an AT specialist, anybody on the team, we really value that collaboration. And that's the grease that makes everything work.
Yes.
So that's a big thread for me.
That's essential to that consideration process, too. We were just talking about that at our community practice meeting. So definitely super essential. I'm
Cool.
going to add in there talking about self-advocacy. We had a lot of guests really highlight advocating for themselves. And like I was talking about before, whether that is an independent process or an interdependent process with the support of another individual. That's so important. We want individuals to have their own voice, to direct their own care, their own learning, and their own life. So,
yeah. And my big takeaway from season 1 is start with the person, not the tech. I say it all the time. It's the essence of the SETT framework. Paul Day, Melissa Millick, Molly, they all modeled it. It's the technology is just a tool. The person, we need to meet their needs, their goals. We need to figure out where they want to be going, their tasks. And it drives every single decision. So start with the person, not the tech. Cool. And so that's an official wrap on season 1 of TCNJ AT Talks. I want to give a huge thank you to my amazing co-hosts, Vanessa and Madison.
Thank you, Brian. And of course, thank you to all our incredible guests this season. We had a ton of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And most of all, thank you, listeners, for listening, for sending in your questions, and for being a part of this community.
Cool. And we'll be taking a short break for at least the month of December and some into January, but we'll be back for season 2 before you know it. And until then, you can find all our past episodes and resources on atcenter.tcnj.edu, on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. And yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone.
We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap on another episode of AT Talks. A huge thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in. We love making this podcast and building this community with all of you. Remember, the conversation doesn't end here. The team at the Assistive Technology Center at TCNJ is dedicated to supporting educators across New Jersey. If you are inspired by today's discussion and want to bring high-quality, free professional development to your district, Vanessa and Madison are ready to help. To learn how you can partner with the center and build capacity in your school, head over to our website. You can find all the information you need at atcenter.tcnj.edu. And while you're there, we want to hear from you. Visit the podcast tab. There you can send us a question through our Google form, or even better, leave us a voice message on Speakpipe for us to play live on the show. Be sure to follow us on social media to stay up to date on all our latest events and resources. You can find us on Instagram and YouTube with the handle @ATCenterTCNJ. And don't forget to subscribe to AT Talks on whatever platform you're listening on right now so you never miss an episode. On behalf of Vanessa, Madison, and myself, Brian, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.